Infobip shift. How are we feeling? All of you are asleep, like two of you are awake, maybe over here. That's cool. We can be chill. It's good to be here. I'm honored and privileged and thankful for the opportunity to talk to you about documentation. A little intro. My name is Tejas. That's pronounced like advantageous for those of you who have some trouble. Whether or not I am advantageous, we'll find out together. Before the apocalypse, I used to, hang on. That's Debbie O'Brien. Let's give it up for Debbie. I can hear the other talks, it's wild. So anyway, Tejas, before the apocalypse, I used to say like contagious, but that doesn't go well these days. Anyway, I'm the director of developer relations at a company called Xata. That is called the Xata Fly, and it's so beautiful. We need to watch it twice, I think. Wait, look at that. Damn. So that's our logo. And this is, by the way, not a talk about my company or our product or anything. This is a talk about documentation as a service for human beings. Okay, documentation as a service. Like, I don't mean like as a monthly service where you pay a subscription for it. I'm not talking capitalism. I'm talking about as an act of service to your fellow developer. Does that make sense? Are you tracking? So how can we write documentation in a way that says to users like, hey, what in the world? This is not me. I think it's fine. So how do we write documentation in a way that says, hey, I want to serve you, fellow user. I want to do good by you. And I feel like there's a need for this because documentation sometimes can be painful, can be hard. And so we're here to talk about humanizing this. Before that, I really liked Kenny, the previous talk. Can we hear it for Kenny? Fantastic. I really liked his notion of ground rules. Wow, that's awesome. This is the most standard, like HDMI, no adapter, no nothing, so is that good? I don't. They should have documented that. Now, if I go overtime, this is on you. Do not cancel my talk if I'm 5 minutes late. How are we doing? Is it good? One person. Is that Yuna? Thanks. Appreciate you. Everyone else be sleeping up here. How's everyone doing? You awake? See? Okay, I think we're back. Are we back? Dude, I don't need a dongle, man. It's just HDMI. Anyway, you know what? We can move on. I don't need slides. It just literally says ground rules. I have some ground rules. Ground rule number one, can we maybe not applaud? That round of applause you just gave for Kenny, let that be the last one. Because like when you clap here and it gets loud, the other speakers, their people can't hear them. So no applause, but if the others clap, then you do it. You know, we join together and we make like compound applause. That's cool. Even if I'm saying something like kind of dumb, let's do that. And then third, instead of applause, if you still want to show your support, I would encourage you just pulling out your phone and tweet. I know you're going to pull out your phone anyway. So this is not one of those talks where it's like no phones allowed. You know what I'm saying? Feel free to pull out your phone and tweet to show some appreciation. I'd be happy to see that. Now I need slides because I want to show you things. Anyway, while he works on that, I can talk to you about the motivation to do this talk. The motivation being why this is so distracting. I apologize. I will try to improvise. The motivation being why am I doing this? Why am I talking about this? The motivation is not to sell you something. It's not to say, hey, use our product. It's well documented. The motivation is not to say, hey, we have docs figured out. Copy us. The truth is we don't. Our docs are not even that good. Just being honest. But the motivation of this talk is that this is stuff we're trying to do as a way of doing good by our developers. And this is just some ideas that we're playing with and that's working well, and that's just knowledge sharing. That's the point, okay? Because here's the deal. Xata, where I work, we try to be a database with like the best developer experience in the market. Databases are usually hard with migrations and so on. We try to make that simple. So much so you never even write like SQL or SQL or anything. You just like interact with a web API and it just does stuff comfortably. Now, because our main offering is just an API, what's really important for a database is the developer experience. We want it to be smooth, and if you've ever used Vercel, they have this like premium developer experience. That's kind of what we're trying to do with databases, okay? So I'm talking about docs, basically. Oh, the slides are back. We're talking about, have they been back for long? Awesome. Thanks for the feedback. So, I can't see. Documentation, we believe at Xata, is key to good developer experience. Would you agree with that? That's something we feel strongly about. Like, if our stuff is not documented, people are going to have a bad time. So for us, it's of paramount importance. Now, I was with some people this morning who cited the art of war. And they said, to defeat my enemy, I must know my enemy, right? So if we want to avoid bad documentation, we must know bad documentation. We must know it deeply. So we spent some time doing research, and we found some docs anti-patterns. Found things we for sure do not want to do with docs. Number one in the docs anti-patterns is docs, we find people don't like them when they're slow. Because like when you come to find documentation, right, you're excited to look into how this works, but often you come to docs because you're annoyed because something's not working as it should. Right? You're like, I tried this, it didn't work, help, and you go to docs. Now imagine you go there, and what do you see? A spinner for like half an hour, you know? You don't want that. You're going to be, like you came to the docs angry, you're going to get angrier. So slow docs, no. Okay? Number two, docs sometimes can be outdated because you usually have an engineering organization building a product. He's laughing over here because it's true. And then you have a documentation team that sometimes they don't sync, and you're like, you document a function with 3 arguments, but they try to call it has 1 argument. You're like, what? I don't. And then you get angry, and you go to the docs, and they're slow, and you're like, no! You know? It's painful. So this we don't like. And number 3, I would call it impact opaque. Sometimes, listen to me, this may be you. Careful. Documentation sometimes is written by very, very smart people. Problem is they're too smart. So you write like this esoteric, like monadic language. You define a monad, and we use and all of this language, and then guess what? People don't really speak your whatever language, and there's no way of knowing are the docs impactful or not, and what is not clear, how can we respond, and so on. So we recognize these 3 things, and we try to create docs that are not them. Okay, we come up with experiments and things to try. I want to share some of them with you today. We think that docs good pattern, I don't know what's the opposite of anti-patterns. If anyone knows, tweet me. But we find good patterns with docs. Usually, number 1 is when you want to go look for something, it's fast. Not only is it fast, it helps you search. So if you try to find, woo! So now, celebrate this. Okay, yeah. Because, like, listen, if I talk, you're not even going to hear me over that, you know, so what's the point? Anyway, feedback for the organizers, wherever you are. Anyway, so not only are they fast, they also help you find what you're looking for. If you have a typo in your search or something, they tolerate the typo. You know what I'm saying? Levenstein distance. So docs, good docs, we find to be fast. Number 2, they're evergreen. They do not go out of date. Is that even possible? We tried some stuff, and we think it is. Number 3, they're easy to measure the impact of. You want to know if they're useful or hard to... Anyway, you want to know if they're useful or hard to understand, okay? So, look, I have 15 minutes left, but there's technical difficulties. I'm going to take a few more. Anyway, this is just an honest talk, you know? I'm not, like, prepared or anything. I don't know if you can tell. Anyway, so... Good patterns. Number 1, docs are fast. How are we making docs fast at Xata? For one thing, they're statically generated. They're text files. How many of you have experience with like CDNs and networks? This is awesome. Good. You're about to learn some shit. Our docs are just text files. They're HTML files. And because they're not generated by some server, there's no state. They're text. We're able to store them on file servers, static file servers, globally distributed across the world. So when they reach our users, they're fast. There's a geographic factor with how fast things load, and when you load something from closer to you, it loads fast. The latency is smaller. So because it's static HTML, everything's faster. We use an Edge CDN, and I'd publicly even say, thanks to Vercel, we just basically piggyback off of their stuff. We use, he's really, you work at Vercel? Oh, he does. So Next.js static site, and I don't want to just tell you what we're doing. I want to show you how we do this stuff. So let's go meta and exit out of this thing. Are you still seeing my screen? I really can't see any. Oh, cool. It's not mirrored. So I'm gonna quickly change this to be mirrored. He told me it would be mirrored. This is going the way I want. How do I display settings? Okay. Extended display. I don't want an extended display. Main display. Oh, great. Now I can't see my main display, but I guess you can. How do I go back? You told me it'd be mirrored, dude. Okay, anyway. How do I... Oh, man. I'm really sorry. Hey, this is not... I'm usually way more professional than this. Is he coming up to help me? No, because I'm using Mac? What? Anyway, mirror for live core. Maybe it's this one. Ah, nice. Let's round of applause for the tech people. Sorry, I said no applause, but I feel like anyway. So okay, we can see my screen. All is good. Thank you. So how are we making this fast? If we open the docs code, we're about to see some stuff. We have this file. It has a dynamic file name in Next.js. This means you take an argument from the path and render it. So we have this function getStaticProps, right? And what it's doing is it basically gets a file path from a content directory and whatever slug is .md. Okay? So if we look in the content directory here, let's go here, and if we go to content, CLI getting started.md or import data.md, right? This here is just markdown, nothing special. But our static site generator reads whatever slug is from Markdown and then generates HTML and then puts it on a global network of nodes for people to access. What does that look like? If we go to the browser, this is our documentation. Again, hey, listen, if you leave here and never use Xata in your life, I do not care. I'm not trying to get you to use my thing. But this is our documentation that we use. And if I go to like CLI and import data, right, this Markdown file here is rendered like this. It's a static textual HTML file, and it looks pretty nice with code snippets and things, but it's literally, this is the code. Just text, and we render it once using a slug, and it becomes a static site. We then have a function, persist page to Xata for search, and we return props content to a React component that then just renders content in a Markdown component. That's how we get the code snippets and stuff like this. What I want to share with you is that is used to generate like 80 to 100 pages of static HTML that is then served pretty fast. How fast? I wonder if I click this. Yeah, so if I switch between pages, it's pretty nice and fast. But also what we try is to make things accessible because, again, not only should it be fast, it needs to like understand users. So we have a search engine. Xata itself is a search engine and a database. And so if I go searching for like, what should I say? I'll search for API key, right? The search does take a bit longer than just static sites because it's making a server round trip. But I come to API keys, and I find exactly what I want. But usually, I don't know about you, I'm not really the best at typing, okay? Like so instead of API keys, if I do something like API key, it's still going to try and match and tolerate my typos. Or how about ape key? Right? So can you see that? Is that big enough? So we really try to make this as accessible as we can so that users can understand. And we go to the lengths to do that. So it's fast and it understands users. And that's the code. Number two, our documentation is we try to keep it evergreen by literally generating most of it from the source code. I don't write docs myself much. I'll write like instructional guides in plain English, but like, look, we're an API. APIs can be documented. So what we do is we use, how many of you have heard of OpenAPI? Okay, yeah, so we use OpenAPI. OpenAPI is a first-class citizen at Xata. If we want to go add a new feature, we add a new path for OpenAPI, describe it. This is the expected body. This is the response you can expect by status code. And that is then used to generate the actual backend code where we fill in logic. That is used to generate the front-end UI that users use. That same document is used to generate the documentation. So nothing's really out of date, and I'd love to show you how we do that here. So let's take a look at our API reference. Let me zoom out a little bit. And if we go to, let's actually use the search. Query table, is that something? So query table, wow, what a search engine. I didn't even plan that, honestly. And so we click this, right? And this is the documentation. There's a lot of code snippets, but what I want you to see is that in between the code snippets, there's a lot of like natural language. So here, for example, look, the page size parameter represents the maximum number of records. Like all of this, I didn't write that. The teams that make the APIs, they write this because they need it for the backend. And it just appears here. And so does the backend and so does the front end. It's all connected. And what does that look like? If you go to xata.io/API/OpenAPI, this is just public. This is our massive OpenAPI file. It's just a huge JSON file. It's pretty big. It's 4,952 lines. And if we make it a little bit bigger, what you'll see is we just have a bunch of paths. Each path represents something you can do with our API. So if we open like workspaces, some text for the docs, and then it's by HTTP method. So when you send a post, we expect this request body, and you can expect these response status codes. And for 201, that is a successful operation, you can expect that schema here. And if I copy, I don't know, I think it's like workspace meta, and search in the document, it's documented there. So here, so this is the schema. You can expect a member count with integer and a plan that's a string. So we define everything and generate everything from that. And because of that, we don't have the problem that our documentation is like not consistent with our API. It's pretty nice. People just come, they use it, and no one's complained so far. A user did complain, though, not about the API being out of sync, but they're like, hey, Xata team, I have issues with you. And we're like, what? Turns out they tried to click a link in the docs, and it 404'd. We had a broken link, and so we're like, man, that's sad. We don't want to have broken links. Now, here's what I want you to understand. There's multiple ways you can go about solving this problem. You can fix the link. Hey, user, what link was that? Great, we fixed it. We have an engineer on our staff. His name is Fabien, senior developer experience engineer. Shout out, great person. He's not the kind of person to just fix a link, right? He likes to go the extra mile. So what he did, he's like, wait, if we have one broken link, we probably have more broken links. Built a system, reads every markdown document, finds the links, pings them, 404, you got problems. I'd love to show you that this is also how we're keeping the documentation evergreen. So if we come here, docs, npm test. It's literally a unit test. Now, markdown link checker, this doesn't look that impressive, but there's 83 passed. I think we can use a UI to visualize this. Or here, we can break a link. We're developers, let's break stuff. So I'm going to go search for a link, an internal link like markdown syntax. Here, so records API guide. Instead of REST API, we'll change it to Infobip API. This is a broken link now. npm test, yesy, npm test. And yeah, one failed. And what failed specifically should have /infobip API /intro defined. And it doesn't. So our docs never deploy with broken links. You understand? This fails at like CI time. Yeah, thank you. That's tweet that. But that's clapping. Do you want to interrupt? But thank you, regardless. We never ship broken links, and through this, my good friend and coworker Fabien found out. Not only did we have a broken link, we had 28 broken links. We have, as of today, 0 broken links. In fact, we have -1. We give people broken links. I'm joking. Lastly, I want to talk about our docs being impactful. How do we know, what are we doing at Xata to make sure our docs have impact? Our docs are understandable. I want to highlight for you 2 things, 2 ways we're doing this, and then we can wrap up, okay? It says I have 5 minutes left, but technical difficulties. I'm ignoring the clock. For those of you who aren't speakers, there's a big clock. So how are we making sure our docs are impactful? Let's take a look at the docs. So if we go here, and let's go to the CLI. CLIs are scary, right? import a CSV file. Oh my gosh. So let's read this and try to understand. You notice there's a big no-no here. CLI has no expansion. What is a CLI? Is it a conquest-like indicator? I don't know. So maybe I don't understand this. Maybe I'm a user who doesn't understand the fancy tech language. What do I do? Now, when you find something you don't know, what do you instinctually do? We're trying to understand the instincts of our users, right? When you read something, what do? You select it, you copy it, you paste it in Stack Overflow. At least that's what I do. Or in Google. And then I'm like, someone smarter than me has solved this. So you select text. So we try to meet our users where we are. And if I want to understand this a bit more, what I'm going to do is select some text here. And when I select enough text, I get this button. And this is important that you select enough text for this. Otherwise, people will select one word, and it's a bit spammy. So you select this. You click it. It says flagging. And it gives you an alert saying, we've been notified. This literally just opens an issue on GitHub for us to then be like, someone doesn't understand that. Let's go fix it. We're making sure that people can understand things. So you select it to go paste in Google. We're like, wait, we have one better. You can let us know. And this has worked actually pretty well for us. If you're wanting to try this out at your company, we can recommend. And then the other thing we have is this ever-present feedback button. We want to make it easy for people to give us feedback. And to be honest with you, this isn't ideal. I'll be fully straight with you. That should be a floating button, so it can be everywhere on the page. Okay, we're working on it. We're not like, don't follow our lead on everything. When you click this, if you have an issue with this page, say for example, the word tips or something, you click feedback. And here you can share whatever complaints you have. I don't like Tejas. He is loud. I don't know, I'm just example. And if you want us to contact you, you enter your GitHub username or whatever. But there's this button I want to show you, include a screenshot. You see that? When you click this checkbox, you get asked what you want to share. This is native browser behavior. We didn't code anything here. This is using the Web Media API, the Media Devices API rather. Built into the browser, asks you what you want to share. You can choose this tab, another tab, a window, your entire screen, whatever you want. I want to share a screenshot of this tab. I click this, I click share, takes a screenshot, attaches it here, so I see exactly what my user is seeing. This is really valuable for us. And then what I'm going to do is I click send. And it's going to upload an image, and it says, thanks, we'll review this and follow up if needed. What just happened? If we go to GitHub, I'm showing you an internal repo now. I didn't sign an NDA, I don't think. So, cool, remind me later. And if we go to issues, we'll see feedback from Doc's site 19 seconds ago, right? And what do we see on the inside when someone does that? We see the feedback, we see the screenshot, we see the route they were at, and we see whatever they filled in to follow up. And this, literally, we use this regularly to help people find what they're looking for and understand our developers with a little bit more empathy. Now, how do we do the screenshot thing? It's called the Media Devices API, Get Display Media. This is the MDN page. But this was made for like a lot of things. This is made for screen sharing and video recording and all this. We just want one piece of this. We want to take a screenshot, save it to a Canvas base 64 save. So we made an open source library because we want just a small piece. This is open source. It's called Xata.io/screenshot. It is relatively popular. It's not Kent C. Dodds popular, okay? It's not, but you know, you can tell him I said that. Anyway, it's literally a very small, nothing major. You import a function called take screenshot, another function called check if the browser supported, and then if the browser supported, you take a screenshot and then you use the screenshot. You can log it to the console. It's given to you as a base 64 encoded string. You can do whatever you want. You can save it to a file system, a database. We don't care. You just get a screenshot of what your user is seeing. You can use it for feedback. If you want us to open source that link checker, the Markdown link checker, it's not yet open source. I can recommend doing this. You go to Twitter, right? And you're like, hey, Xata, please open source the Markdown link checker. This will pressure us enough to open source that. I just tweeted anyway. Anyway, pressure-driven development. Let's talk. let's talk takeaways. I'm almost done. I need like 2 minutes. Takeaways. Number one, I like it. Woo! Number one, look, documentation is for human beings. It's not for like machines. People are more than machines. It's hard to believe sometimes in tech, right? People have emotions and different knowledge levels and different privilege and different tech for just white men is not tech. Yes, I said it. Oh my gosh, can you say that? Look, the truth is we have a diverse and beautiful industry and we need to be sensitive to everybody. So with documentation, I'd encourage a service. Hey users, I'm here to serve you with words. Number two, set a high bar. Like that's what we do. We could fix a broken link or we could prevent broken links forever. And it's really a mindset thing more than a technical thing. What we built for the Markdown link checker is not super advanced, to be honest. It's a tool. We can all build tools. We just have to think higher. And number three, I'm a human being. I don't know if you noticed, but like I suck at writing docs. I'll just publicly like own my failure. I'm not good. I do typos. Sometimes it's out of date. I am prone to error. You're prone to error. Spoiler alert. And I think the biggest mistake we make is we expect human beings to not make mistakes and be like perfectly rational all the time. Never gonna happen. So instead, my takeaway is let's offload the logic work to machines and reduce human error as much as we can, letting machines generate docs from source code for us and stuff like that. With that, I want to say, Infobip, thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure and an honor and a privilege. Appreciate you.